Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Kryptek. You know, guys, camouflage and quality hunting garments and apparel are vitally important to success in the field. You want to be out there when you want to be out there and for as long as you want to be out there. And you need high-quality garments and clothing and gear that's going to keep you concealed at the same time. You know, Kryptek's variety of camouflage patterns and the offerings of apparel that they bring to market are second to none. I love being partnered with that company. I love the shared ethos that we have. I love the shared values that we have. And I'm super proud to support a veteran-owned American company like Kryptek. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen Podcast. And as always, or not always, but as is been the norm recently, I've got my wingman, Josh Lancaster of Red Flats Retrievers here on. And we're going to do a little bit of a season recap. We're winding down. We've still got a few days of goose season left. It goes out on Sunday. But we're sitting right now at extreme sub-zero temperatures, which I don't mind hunting in those. But we've lost a lot of birds, most of our geese, and they're in survival mode right now. And so we thought, let's get together and talk about hunting in the cold, what that looks like, talk about some of our favorite moments from the season, and if we could piece together another hunt before it ends, great. If not, we'll figure it. It's dog training time.
Exactly.
Again. And we wanted to recap where we started last summer with our dogs and some of the things we were focused on and some of the things we saw success-wise. Your dog, Jasper, in particular, made leaps and bounds this season. It was so cool to see all your hard work pay off. And so we're just going to walk through some of that stuff. Let's start with where we're at with season right now. You drive back and forth. Your job's about 20 miles away from where you live, and you get to drive past some pretty – if there's birds, you see them.
Yeah.
What are you seeing right now?
Right now, I mean, the last couple of days or last week and a half, it has been poor. We got that big push of weather, and it went from, 40s during the day to we're in the negatives now.
Yeah, it's right now it's -9 outside, and so you get any kind of a breeze, and it just compounds that and freezes up the river fast, which the birds don't seem to mind the slushy conditions. They just sit on the ice. But what really hurt us was the amount of snow that we got.
Yes.
We've got out. We don't have as much here as they do further west, but we're sitting at probably close to a foot of snow on the ground, and that makes it really hard for those geese to get out and feed and dig around. I know my focus for scouting shifts to where there's cattle.
Exactly.
You know, if there's
open
cattle,
ground because cattle are opening it up.
Exactly. If there's cows on something, there's probably going to be geese there because they're opening things up. But I'm not even seeing that.
No, I mean, last week when we were trying to plan a hunt last week, I went out to a couple of the spots that I've always seen birds.
Right.
I went out 3 times in one day. I never saw a bird flying other than the ones I jumped off the river. And that was just I drove to an edge and looked over, and there they were. They saw me, and they flew off and came right back. They didn't go to a field. And, you know, that's hard because you could hunt the river. But with the negative temperatures, personally, I'm not putting a dog in it.
No, it's not smart to put a dog in the water unless you can get them back into a heated blind where it's warm in there.
Exactly, yeah.
But and you could be careful about your shots and selective and try to drop birds on ice and on land.
Yeah,
we used to do that.
Oh yeah,
back in Michigan, there'd be a spring hole on a lake that you couldn't get close to, but you'd set up an ice set, fairly close to it, and just try to shoot birds that are going to fall where your dog or where you can get to them.
Exactly. Yeah,
but it's tough, and honestly, I almost feel a little bad picking on those birds when conditions are like this because, seasons are structured to the point where we're doing our part for conservation, for wild game conservation. But I'm not as mad at them as I used to be in my 20s, man, and even in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I see those birds now, and they're down there just hunkered down on an ice shelf, just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, if they give us a good crack out in the field and there's a couple hundred birds on a feed someplace, let's go for it.
Exactly. If we would have had weather in October, which we never got, and in the past years we always have some weather in October, but this past year we didn't have much, and that's where it's hard. I think last time on our last podcast we talked about having Game and Fish extend our season, and hopefully somebody's listening, because every year, so the last 6 years that I've been here, the big push doesn't happen until season's over for us. And I mean, it's amazing because literally season ends for ducks, and there's thousands of ducks that have moved in day after. And, I don't know, they have made their seasons for their studies and all. That's great and dandy. Just as the consumer, as a hunter, we want the season to last a little bit longer.
It would be nice to see them take those final days in January and extend our duck season. Take some off the beginning, off those early dates. Like we've said before, maybe give us a week or 2 weekends in end of September, first part of October to get some of those early birds that leave, and then don't open it again until late October or even November with no
splits.
Yeah, no splits. Just run it longer to the end of January. I agree with you. It would be nice to have some of that. The goose season's very generous. We can hunt geese until the 16th of February this year, which is Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was funny you talk about the ducks. I went out and hunted one of our goose spots before the cold.
Yeah.
The last day before the cold, that night, temperatures plummeted. We started getting snow. But my family and I went out. We just took the 3 kids and my wife. She wanted to try to shoot a goose. And we killed 2 birds. Yeah. The birds were not really interested in being where we were, and they were really leery. And so the birds we killed were right in the decoys. I mean, it was feet down. It was perfect, what you want. And it was warm. The kids were running around in, hardly any clothes, and it was nice. Yeah. Great family day. We had a really good time. But the ducks, that spot is always a challenge to decoy ducks in. And they're
just doing it.
I could have limited out 4 guys on ducks out of that spot. Yeah. Duck season's closed. It's cool to watch them work, and the kids had a ball watching, Drake mallards just into the goose spread.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I'm like, there's obviously some more birds that have pushed in ahead of this storm. Yeah. Man, it would be nice if duck season was still open till the end of January, but it is what it is. I agree with you. Of all the decisions that Wyoming Game and Fish has to make, that one's probably fairly low on the priority list.
Yeah, that's the last on their totem pole they got to work on.
Yeah, exactly. But, even if we don't get another hunt, we had a pretty good season. Oh. You got to hunt more than I did.
Yeah.
I did not. It doesn't seem like I ever hunt as much as I want to. But we got a couple. We got some really good episodes and some content laid out for next year. We've got another snow goose hunt. We just released the snow goose video last Saturday. It's doing well. Great time with the Platte Basin guys. And we're going to go back the end of this month in a couple weeks now, and do that hunt again.
Awesome.
So that'll be fun. And then we got turkey season.
Oh boy. Up. Yeah. No, there's so much that we can talk about here, especially with our passion of just birds and dogs and everything else. The season we had this year was phenomenal. I'll just start from this past summer of working dogs. From Hondo, I mean, how many times this season alone did Hondo, you sent him back after all of our ladder drills we did this summer, and he did it. I mean, he did exactly what we did for training-wise. It clicked. Yep. He figured it out. And it's just, that is such a blessing for us because we're putting a lot of time and effort into our dogs.
Right.
So for any of y'all that are out there that are training a dog or thinking about getting a dog, put the work in and you'll see what comes from it.
Yeah. You and I put in a lot of time over the summer. We met at least once a week and worked all the dogs together as much as we could. And we watched them progress through the summer. But you're kind of holding your breath when season rolls around to see, like, is this going to stick? Is what we worked on going to translate into field results? Yeah. And I was pleased with Hondo. He definitely took the back command better than he has. He still pops on me, but we'll work through that.
Exactly.
I did have one thing I know I'm constantly evaluating where my dogs are. Dog at this point now. That last goose hunt I was telling you about, we knocked those 2 birds down, and I needed him to take the farthest bird on the right. And it's that particular spot, the way the birds fell, they fell at the bottom of the set, and the river gets really fast right there. It splits and goes around a big island, and it gets really fast, and the bird gets some distance really quickly. And it's fine if the dog has it marked, runs the bank, or in Hondo's case, jumps in the river and runs through the water and gets the bird. And he did. And it's one of those deals where I needed him to go as soon as I sent him. And he actually was steady, and he held. And when we shot, and he marked both birds down that fell, and, he could see them. And I sent him, and he went after the bird I needed him to go after. And I was like, I'll just run out and get this other bird. Well, that throws him for a loop. And he's like, what's going on? And he sees me running out in the river to get another bird trying to help. And he dropped the bird, and he left the bird that he had and runs up to get the bird that I'm going to get. Meanwhile, that first bird's down the river. In hindsight, Josh, what I should have done as a handler was, and I went into panic mode, I will admit, because I don't want those birds to, get away. And we got a long ways, a couple 100 yards, a really fast rip that's hard for a dog to retrieve in. It's shallow. They can get, it's not dangerous for the dog, but it's hard for them to keep tabs on a dog. Part of it is they're always looking into the sun right there. So they can't see the bird in the riffly water. It's just a tough spot. But at the bottom of that, it hits a corner and makes a big, deep pool that the world and things, your birds most of the time will hit that, and if they take the right lane on the far right, if they float down that, then they eddy out, and they're just floating in a back eddy.
Gotcha.
If they stay in the current, it slows down enough where the dog can see them. Plus, it's flat. There's a fairly elevated bank, and the dog can see the bird, then runs out and gets it.
Gotcha.
That's what happened. That's how it worked out. I'm going out there to get this goose, and everything's moving fast. I'm trying to get Hondo directed to the bird that's going downriver, and I lost my footing.
Oh, no.
And I went in. And I've got my hand down, but it was warm, so I had my waders unzipped. I zipped them up quick. I still shipped a bunch of water.
Shoot.
I was soaking wet. I was like, okay, whatever. Long story short, he got the first bird that I was trying to grab. Next bird's, rapidly disappearing down the river. And I just got out on the bank and sent him down the bank. And the ladder drills from the summer paid dividends there because he ran the bank, spotted the bird from the bank, entered the water, and of course, as soon as he gets on the water, it's riffly. Waves are probably this tall, which a dog's swimming in the water and blocking their vision. And he could smell the bird because the wind was blowing the scent to him, but then he couldn't see between the riffles on the water and the sun glare. I could barely see the bird, and he definitely can't see it. At one point, he's 3 feet from it and can't see it. And it's going. Well, I called him back out, and we ran down and we got down the bank to the eddy, and the bird was in the pool. And I heeled him, lined him with my hand, and I could see, he's radar lock. I'm like, he's got it. Sent him, typical Hondo explosion, splash in the water, brings me the goose. In hindsight, I should have just let him get the first bird and stood on the bank and just walked the bank down. Brings me the bird. I keep pace with the second bird. He brings me the first one, and I line him and send him again. But in the heat of the moment...
Got to get the bird.
Yeah, I kind of lost it. And I got wet. Hondo didn't perform great. We got both birds. They didn't get away. They were both stone dead. But it was like... Ugh. And that's the other thing. On these late season geese, I'm shooting the Weatherby Sorex. I'm shooting a modified choke, just a straight factory modified choke, which I've over the years I've come to just kind of settle on that for geese. Your steel loads, if you're shooting regular Federal Premium Black Cloud or Blue Box or even the new Ultra Steel, it patterns really well out of a modified choke. And just stick with what works. But on those days, on these days when I know my shot opportunities are going to be limited and volume is going to be fairly low, shooting volume, I'm a huge believer in having a box or two of the Federal Premium heavyweight TSS Black Cloud.
Oh, yeah.
And I like the BB by 7 load in particular for these late season geese. Biggest reason is I want my birds dead.
Oh, exactly.
I don't want to have to be having a dog chase cripples in cold water, fast rivers. I want dead birds.
Yep.
And let's face it, late season, super wily birds. The birds wanted 0 calling, by the way, that day. If I called at them, they wouldn't decoy. The 2 birds that decoyed, my calls were dangling from the lanyard. I got their attention, they turned, and I shut up.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to them at all, and they spun twice and dumped right in the decoys.
Very stale.
Right.
Yep.
So your shots tend to be on the edge of range a little bit more. I like that TSS load.
Yeah.
And it's like, am I going to go buy a case of that stuff? It's cost prohibitive, man. It's expensive. And not everybody can afford a case of it.
Yep.
But if you pay attention here and there, you can find a box or another box. And you grab a box here and a box there, and you use it when those birds are touchy. When your shots are a little longer, late season when you can't have crippled birds, that stuff is just, I've said it a million times, it's like depleted uranium. I mean, it is unbelievable. Last year, going back to our last goose hunt we did last year, similar conditions, not quite this cold, not quite this much snow. I was reviewing some footage of that for some social media posts the other day.
Yep.
I wanted a cripple that day because I wanted to line Hondo out on like a 100-yard cripple and have him practice that. Well, the birds are decoying so well and shooting that Black Cloud TSS, there were no cripples, man. Everything's stone dead laying in the decoys, and it's like, okay. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it was, that stuff is just wicked.
It's deadly.
Just wicked.
Yeah. And going back of Hondo and the work, I think about Jasper and how much work we put into him.
Dude.
And then his first duck hunt. And how you had to calm me down because I had high expectations.
Yeah.
And then our second duck hunt, he was doing fine, but he wasn't smelling the birds.
Yep.
He was going to the decoys, running right over the dead bird.
Yep.
But then the last duck hunt we had, it was just clicked. He didn't have a single issue.
He was phenomenal.
And that's it makes me just joy, so much joy for all the work we've put in, Hondo and Jasper. And it's such an excitement to me.
Yep.
Just because it's clicking with our dogs. Our dogs are teachable to where they are exceeding our expectations. They're doing what we have trained them to do.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those things that you put in all that off-season work, and you have to manage expectations, especially with young dogs like Jasper, because you got to remember it's his first time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard because you've seen him work. You've done all these things. And, I remember the first time we went out, first couple times, he couldn't even swim.
No.
You know what I mean? You're throwing water retrieves, and he's out there splashing around like a show dog, And I remember we were talking about it, and I remember I told you, I said, it'll click.
Oh, yeah.
He'll get it. And, dude, by the end of the season, halfway through the season, he was crushing it.
Yeah.
He was just crushing it. I remember you sent him on the one freelance hunt we did, and he did like a wheelie across the river. I don't think his front feet touched the water for 30 yards.
No.
He was on his back legs.
Yeah, just getting it.
Just getting after it. I said, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so it's funny because I'm at the point with Hondo where the fundamentals are there.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about Hondo going.
No.
If anything, it's keeping him from going.
Yep.
The steadiness component never ends. Constantly drilling down on that. Yeah, this cold weather prevents us from doing a lot of work.
Yep.
But it's the little things like steadiness in the house, steadiness going outside, steadiness here, steadiness there, constantly reinforcing those things. And the older he gets, I remember this Mackinac got to this point where he became steady by default because he'd just wait and see, okay, yep, nothing fell. I'm going to sit here.
Yeah. Well, and the coolest thing with working 2 dogs together like we did this summer and then during the whole hunting season, I mean, Jasper and Hondo they're hunting buds. When they see each other, it's kind of like, oh, we're going hunting. We're going to do something.
What's amazing to me is I've been around so many dogs in my life, and whenever you get the dynamic, you mix dogs that don't live together, don't spend time together, you can have issues.
Oh boy,
major issues.
Yes,
dog
you can.
fights. I mean, it can. I've seen it all.
Well, especially with two intact dogs.
Right. And those two ignore each other.
Oh yeah.
After the hunt, there was one time where Jasper got a little bird possessive at one point, but I mean, it's
dogs.
There's noise, but there's nothing coming from it, know, and it's like, and Hondo's such a pansy that he's just like, I don't know how you can take a dog with that much go and that much, he's a physical specimen, and then have just this wimp attitude. Like cutting his dew claws the other day, and he's howling. I'm like, dude, I'm not even hurting you. And you got to hold him down, It's like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. It's just funny how dogs are. But I love that about those two is they get along together.
Exactly.
And they ignore each other during the hunt.
Yeah.
And it's business.
It's no different with Hondo and Dara. I mean, they hunted together well. We bred them together for the first litter, and they're still, I mean, if I brought Dara out on a hunt, they'd do just fine.
And I think a lot of that is if you're going to have, we're talking about kind of season recap, but we're also what we're thinking about training wise, where we need to go in the coming months before next season.
Yes.
And when you can train with your buddies, with the people you're going to hunt with, and train with the dogs that you're going to hunt with, it makes a huge difference during hunts because those dogs know each other.
Exactly.
And they know we're not going to put up with this. You're going to be at heel. You're going to sit and be quiet.
Yeah.
And quiet as can be in Hondo's case. But it's not a completely new foreign thing.
No,
and I see that so often where guys get together to go on a hunt, and there's dogs that have never met, and they're sorting out stuff, and there's growling, and it's like that part of that's just dog stuff.
Yeah.
It's to be expected. The other part of it is having a dog that's well-mannered and controllable enough, like, no, you're going to sit right here until I tell you.
Exactly. And that goes right back to just general obedience.
Right.
And that is the main foundation for all of the dogs. For anybody that's thinking about, has a dog, get that obedience done, guys. If you don't get it done when you go on a hunt with somebody you've never hunted before and you don't have that obedience, the dogs are running amok. It just gets frustrating. One, you yourself as the handler gets pretty upset.
Right.
So, not saying that you can't just rock and roll on a hunt, but get the fundamentals, get the obedience done, and then all the rest will come together.
I agree with you 100%, but I think there's a caveat to it as well. What you expect, you kept Hondo over the weekend.
Yep.
My family and I got to go on a little trip.
Yeah.
So you lodged Hondo for us, and he was outside. But right now you have 7 dogs in your home.
Yes.
With 2 more in kennels outside. And I know for a fact Hondo probably came in and hung out and, got some loving.
Oh, yeah.
But when we came in the house to get Hondo on Sunday afternoon, your dogs are like, they're in their places. They're perfect. Jasper was a little mouthy, but I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I want a dog that I wish Hondo was a little bit more possessive of us. I don't think he'd do anything if somebody broke into the house.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
I doubt it.
I don't see that from him.
No.
Mackinac was a different animal.
He's a lot of talk, but he doesn't have a bite.
Yeah. And where I'm going with that is I walk in, and that's super impressive to see. And it's great. And you have to have that level of control with 7 dogs.
Yes.
You have to. Otherwise, it's chaos.
Yep.
Right now, with only 1 dog in the house, Hondo still plays. He places. He stays. He does all those things. And maybe it's I'm getting soft. Maybe it's I'm looking back at having recently put Mackinac down, looking back at maybe places I was too harsh with him, where I'm going, it's okay if Hondo lays at the entrance of the kitchen while we're cooking.
Yeah.
And hangs out. He doesn't have to be on place in the other room. He wants to be with us.
Yeah.
He's not underfoot. He's chilling out, but he's, there's food in here, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's like you have to temper that obedience. It has to be situational a little bit. In other words, same thing with my children. I want my kids, the event we took my kids to last weekend was a Dallas Safari Club gala. 2 nights. My kids were phenomenal. I'm going to brag on them a little bit. They were awesome. It's a boring event for kids. It's geared towards adults.
Yeah.
But my kids were able to greet and meet people with firm handshakes and good eye contact, and they could hear them. And they had their toys to play with. I didn't have to worry about my kids.
Yeah.
I want the same thing out of my dogs. But I want, just like my kids, I want them to be kids at the same time.
Oh, for sure.
And I want that dog to be a dog at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be an automaton.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm at with Hondo, where he's not going to run the show, and he doesn't run the show.
Yeah.
I mean, he even listens to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I've backed up a little bit and gone, what's the most important thing here? I want to enjoy this dog. He slept on the bed like every night since Mackinac died.
Yep. Since
we put Mac down. And it's like he doesn't spend the whole night on the bed with my wife and I because he gets too hot. Mm-hmm. So he'll get down. But it's like, he's my dog, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's my boy.
Exactly.
It doesn't at the end of time with him, I don't want to look back and go, hey, he was in the crate all the time. Mm-hmm. Or he was on place all the time. Like, oh, he sure was a perfect dog. Yeah. One of the things that we love about Mackinac the most and we laugh about now is all the scoundrel stuff that he did when he was younger. He was terrible. But when it came to hunting, I could count on him.
Yeah.
I could count on him to do what he needed to do and to be well behaved in that scenario. And my expectations have been leveled up with Hondo. There's things that I looked at with my training with Mackinac, and I'm like, I need to shore that up. I need a dog that's more steady. And what I got with Hondo is a dog it's not in his nature to be steady.
No.
He wants to go. When a bird hits the water, he wants to go. So I've those things I'm going to stay really firm on. There's other things like, if he hanging out in the house, he's going to get some leeway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, come on up on the couch, bud.
Yep.
Or if he wants to, his big thing is he always wants to crawl up in your, put his feet on your shoulders. And it's like, it's okay if I go, come here. But if he's doing it on his own, I'm like, no.
Exactly.
Putting those paws down. I guess not being cold.
Yeah.
With the dog, and loving on him.
Exactly.
And don't hear what I'm saying. No. I'm not accusing you of being cold because you're not. Your dogs are very loving and you're very loving with them. I'm just looking at it going, with 3 little kids in the house, all this stuff going on, I want that dog. I'm not running the same show you're running.
No. And the thing is so the dogs weren't placed when y'all drove in. I placed them because I knew it would be absolute mayhem when you came through the door. So, and that's every night when I get home from work or I'm cooking supper, me and my wife are cooking supper, the dogs are meandering around the house.
Hanging out. Right.
Now, there's a line. They don't come into the kitchen.
Get out of the kitchen.
Exactly. They know not to, and you'll see.
And that phrase, it's like.
Out. Then they're like, I'm a little too close.
Hondo, get out of the kitchen.
Exactly.
And he'll go 5 feet further out and lay back down. It's like, that's fine. I just don't want you in this area.
I mean, and so it's just different scenarios, different things. Like you just said, your 3 kids and Hondo. It's different dynamic when me and my wife don't have any kids.
Right.
And we have dogs.
Yeah.
And it's just without control of 7 dogs in the house.
Oh, man.
It'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
The dogs would run the roost.
I see these guys that are the dog mushers.
Oh, yeah.
This time of year, my kids are really into dog mushing. They want to watch videos and they want to watch it. It's cold and they're reading stories about Balto.
Oh, yeah.
And and watching the Disney movie and learning about the Iditarod and and all that stuff. And I tell stories about growing up in the UP and the UP 200 sled dog race and all this cool stuff. And those guys, you look at those guys, and they'll have 50 dogs.
Yeah.
And they're all staked out in the yard with a barrel and a stake with a chain on it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't, at that point, you're just managing chaos.
Exactly.
And that's a different animal, too, because those are high-performance athletes on another level than our Labradors are.
Yes.
It's like, would Hondo pull a sled? Yeah, I've had him do it. But not like that.
No.
And so They're just different levels.
Oh, yeah.
But there's nothing worse than when you come over. Say we were to come over to you guys' place for supper, and you had no control over your dogs, and there's 7 dogs in the house. Even one dog that's out of control. It's like, man, that's, for me, that's like, ugh.
Exactly.
I want that dog placed. I want it, if I want it to come over and say hi, great.
Yeah.
But that obedience is important for those aspects, and it translates into the field.
Exactly.
And, getting back to what we saw this fall, the one duck hunt we did it was just freelance. We tried something completely different.
Yeah.
And we're just hiding in the bushes.
Yeah.
You were on one end, I was on the other, and we both had our dogs, and we were taking turns with the shooting.
Yeah.
So it was very easy. I feel like that day I got the best out of Hondo.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't shooting.
Exactly.
I was handling.
Yep.
And I threw him for a loop because of the way the hide was, I had him heeled on the right side. Mm-hmm. When I tell him to heel, it's on the left.
Yeah.
Because I taught Mackinac to heel on the right, and when they were together, I wanted one on each side.
Exactly.
But the fact that that I was paying attention to him and not trying to do something else too.
Yeah.
I got by far the best behavior out of him that day.
I would say the same for Jasper, and I had him on my left side. But that hunt specifically, I just remember there was so much, because me and you both, we didn't shoot much in the beginning at all or none. And then when the other 2 gentlemen, they tagged, or not, limited out,
right?
Then me and you started shooting. And you actually, I love this part about both of our dogs, is that other people can handle the dog.
Dan took Hondo.
Yeah.
And he handled Hondo.
So this past summer, I had Hondo for about a week.
Yep.
So my dad was actually in town. And so the days that I was off and I was working all the dogs, I worked Hondo, and Dad looks at me and goes, "That's not your dog." And I said, "No, it's not. Me and Todd have been training together. Hondo will listen to me." Mm-hmm. So then Dad's like, "Well, let me see if I can work him." My dad ran Hondo.
Yep.
Then my dad ran Jasper. Then he ran Dara. And that is something – now, there's a lot of competition when it comes to that with people. That's my dog.
Right.
But the coolest thing is say you're in a position where you can't handle the dog, or the dog's in a bad spot that needs assistance. Somebody else can put their hands on him. Yep. Now, does that mean I want anybody to take the birds from the dog? No.
Right.
But it is awesome to have a dog that is teachable and trainable that can be handled by multiple different people.
And not all dogs are capable of that.
Correct.
Either some dogs are very one person.
Yes.
And kind of knowing that. But I've always been a firm believer that I should be able to grab my brother's dog or one of yours and go hunt.
Exactly.
And that dog will hunt for me.
Yeah.
This episode of the Wingmen Podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. Guys, obviously there's a handful of things that I rely upon heavily for wingmen. One being performance eyewear, and Leupold has crushed that category. I thought I knew what good eyewear was, what good sunglasses were. Man, I was wrong. Performance eyewear from Leupold has taken that to the next level for me. Another thing is binoculars. I have to have high-quality binoculars for scouting, for finding birds, and Leupolds bring me all of the qualities that I need in a pair of binoculars. They also make killer everything, as you guys know. So check out Leupold, and thank you for listening to today's podcast. It was interesting hunting pheasants. I hunted pheasants with Hondo a lot this year.
Yeah.
And when we were hunting in Iowa over Christmas, he was pretty focused on me. Mm-hmm. He was kind of hunting. He was casting back and forth in front of me.
Yeah.
And, my dad's 100 yards to my left or 50 yards to my left. My wife's over here. And Hondo would go and work the ground between my wife and I, but I had to send him over to work the ground in front of my dad.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt we were hunting massive swaths of CRP, and there's no doubt we missed some birds because we needed 3 dogs, basically, and way more dudes to hunt that. But it is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
But having a dog that's flexible but controllable
is
huge.
I can't tell you how many times on just upland hunts that I've done in the past that a dog will work for certain people but won't work for somebody else. And then that person doesn't have as much opportunity of birds in front of him.
Right.
Because, us walking, Rooster's going to run, and the dog, I mean, we're not smelling. We don't have a
Right.
nose like a dog does.
Right.
And it's amazing to me when you have a dog that will work for you but won't even work for his master. I mean, it hunts with somebody else that it's built
It's
confident.
weird how dogs can key on things.
Oh, man.
They just click. When we did a hunt up in Montana a few years ago, and one of the dog guys there was Bryce DeVries, who he runs. His English pointers are phenomenal, and there was a little female English pointer that hunted with me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's way out in front hunting, but whenever we would stop to and we had a big group of guys, whenever we stopped to redirect or do whatever we were going to do or adjust an approach, she'd come and stand by me. Not Bryce. Bryce is over in the middle, but I'm on the wing. And I'm not sure what it was, but she'd come and huddle between my legs, and I'd pet her, and some dogs just click with some people.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny how that goes. But, I think we have going into this off season now, hopefully we get one more hunt. If we do, great. I'm not taking Hondo to Nebraska.
Okay.
As much as I want to, I know that there will be other dogs in the mix there. And that's one of the difficult things, Josh, about filming content when you have to be kind of the focal point.
Oh, yeah.
I have to shoot. I have to have – and a snow goose hunt will be a little easier because I'm not calling a shot, And as much as I would like to take him, it's not the right scenario.
Well, and that goes back to what we have talked
about knowing when to leave your dog at home.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of guys be like, I wouldn't go if I couldn't hunt my dog. Well, that's fine. That's up to you. You're going to miss out on a lot of cool opportunities.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Hondo would be too much of a distraction to the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish on that hunt. If it was just a buddy hunt,
oh, yeah,
Hondo would be going.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it is what it is. But, getting down to the identifying things, you definitely have things that okay, this is what I need to work on throughout the coming months. So do I. I need to continue working on steadiness with Hondo. I'm not 100% satisfied with his casting.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say that. I need to rephrase that. He casts left and right very, very well. He's got good handles, which improved because of the stuff we did over the summer. But the popping, and if for you guys that don't understand what I mean by popping, it's when you send a dog and they bounce out a little ways and stop, and they look back at you. They don't just take a line and go. We need to continue the work on sending to a pile and sending way more ladders with him.
Yeah.
So he just takes a line and goes. He got better at that, but still – part of it is where we hunt, the dogs are so used to just seeing birds in the water. But it's narrow, and you'll sail birds on the other side. They'll fall on the bank on the other side. And I can get Hondo over there just fine. But when he hits the middle of that river, he stops and starts looking, he's looking for a bird.
Yeah.
It's like, no, back.
Yep.
Maybe he'll never get over that.
No,
Maybe he'll always pop. But I think we can get him past that. So that's going to be a big, big focus for me in this offseason is tons and tons of ladder drills.
Well, and not just ladder drills. So where we trained this past summer, and there's those two ponds.
Right.
That one pond that has that levee on the other side, basically, that's got that hill. And they can't see what's on the other side of that hill. So, we'll do our ladder drills, but we're going to do some blinds that's the big thing. It is just, I'm sending you and you're going to go.
Yep.
And, that goes back, everybody's got their own opinion on force fetching and pressure and everything else. But that backing, if you do force fetch the way I do it, so I do ear pressure in the beginning, and then after ear pressure, I do collar conditioning. So that I actually, when I send a dog back, I have a nick that I can just nick the dog of I'm telling you to go back.
Keep going.
Keep going. And that's just having handle. I mean, I'm a huge believer in an e-collar. Is that of abusing the dog? No, it's having hand control.
And if you use it correctly.
Correct.
Because people do abuse them, unfortunately.
They do, unfortunately. And there's that line, and some dogs don't need it. That's one thing, pressure enough. A hard back is pressure.
Right.
Just back, that's just normal. But you raise your voice, a hard back. And there's so many different ways of training and teaching a dog. When I give you a hard back, that means you're going. There's not just you're going to pop or whatever.
Right.
And so there's some great little pieces to that. But this summer, Jasper needs it also. And so I'm excited for this summer to where we can get back out, and I'm going to have, oh boy, I got one. I'll have 2 other dogs that I'll be running that will be coming of age of getting to that point as well.
Yep.
And so it's just it's exciting to see where our 2 dogs have gotten and where the future ones will get to.
No, I completely agree. But let's talk about, we hunt together a lot, but we don't hunt together all the time.
Correct.
What for you? It's easy for me because I am constantly thinking and constantly analyzing to identify weakness.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm like, that needs to be better. That needs to be fixed. It's harder for me. We do a thing on Monday afternoons here where we have a staff meeting here at Eastmans every Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
And we're going through not only our tasks for the week, what we're working on, or where we might need somebody's help or this and that, but one of the things that we do is we talk about wins. Mm-hmm. What were the wins from last week?
Yeah.
What are your wins? It's really hard for me to come up with wins.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it's obvious.
Yeah.
You get a bazillion views on a post or a blog or something, and it's like, yeah, that's a win. But the day in and day out, I'm very, very much that kill it, drag it home mentality. Mm-hmm. Get it done. You got a job to do. Let's get it done, and then move to the next one, And then one of the things that I've had to learn over time is when it's time to rest, you rest.
Oh yeah.
And that's a difficult thing for me. I don't rest well. I've had to allow myself that. Mm-hmm. It's 8:30. The kids are in bed. It's okay for you to turn on Netflix and sit down with your wife and chill.
Exactly.
For half an hour before bed.
Yep.
Or read a book. Or it's okay during hunting season to not hunt on the weekend if you don't want to.
Yep.
Or if you've got other things going on. And I'm very rapidly approaching that time in my life with my kids where we're going all over the place.
Yeah.
Wrestling and basketball, and it's like there's always something.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend we had to choose between a wrestling tournament and a basketball tournament. Basketball's winding down. There's only one more tournament after this one. Wrestling's just getting started at this age.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're going to do the basketball tournament because there's only one more after this. And then in March, we've got a whole string of every weekend there's a wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. But it's go, and it's easy for me to see what I need to accomplish and what I need to do, especially with my dogs. But celebrating those wins is important because you need to be able to look back and go, that went really well.
Exactly.
What are some of the things from this season for you that are highlights, are wins?
Highlights and wins, for Jasper, and I'm just going to go with him for the wins this year. Every single hunt, he exceeded my expectation. And just the win for that hunt that you were just bringing up we went to a new spot and tried it out, and he Ferrari'd all the way across, never even had his front feet on the ground. He retrieved his first goose that day.
Yep.
And, that bird wasn't dead either.
Nope.
If you remember that.
I do.
I sent him, and I was like,
Too
late now.
Yep.
And he did it like a champ. Like he'd done it a million times, and it was his first goose. And normally on a first goose, I'd try to make sure it's deader than dead.
Yeah.
But he just full charge, went across, grabbed him, brought him back, and that was a huge win for me. Just of his drive, for one. His drive just continues to go and go and go. Very similar to Jasper, Hondo. They both have high drive.
Yep.
Hondo's got more, but they are
Hondo's
both.
a rare dog, though.
He is.
And we've talked about that here and there, but there's not a lot of dogs that have as much go
Correct.
as him.
Another win for Jasper, his steadiness. Oh my
gosh,
goodness. I am just dumbfounded of how steady that dog is. And we saw it this summer. of ladder drill. We would sit both dogs. You'd be controlling Hondo, and I would take, 10 bumpers and walk. And every 20 yards, drop
Jasper
one.
never moved.
And he never moved through the whole drill. I'm at the end of the pile, basically, and the bush is hiding. And it started from when he was little. Yeah. I mean, he is just solid. So that would be another huge win for me. A couple hunts this year, I actually took 2 dogs. And I got Quinn, one of my puppies. She got on her first hunt this year. And then one of my other females, Star, she went on hunts with me this year. And, I mean, just working 2 dogs, I love it. I mean, 2 dogs together that are my own, just honoring each other. That is, I would say, for me, is one of my biggest things is a dog will honor another dog. And that you can send 2 dogs one at a time. I mean, yep. I always
– you get that bird, you get that bird.
Exactly. Line them up, send them. And I always am looking – there's a gentleman on Instagram that he's from UK, and he's got –
Slingley?
Yeah, Slingley.
Love that guy, man.
He's got 15 or 20 dogs behind him, and they all sit, and then birds are falling, and he's just calling them by name. And that is something I hope at one point when I get a pretty big pack of dogs, which I have a pack, but it's, that steadiness and working dogs together, and like we did this summer, it is so important. Right. I mean, yeah, you can go out with your family and hunt with Hondo, and he does great every single time. But when you have multiple dogs, and it's just, there's so much more joy. And that's what I'd say is a win, is a joy of seeing our dogs just thrive and what they're bred to do and what we've trained them to do.
Right.
So
back to Slingley, and I just know that it's his Instagram handle. I don't know him at all, but yes, his dog work is very impressive.
Oh.
But one of the things you have to keep in mind is anytime you're consuming content on YouTube or social media, you're only seeing the highlights, man.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I guarantee you that he has dogs break. He has dogs get into mischief.
Oh, yeah.
You can't handle 10 dogs at once and not have something go wrong. But overall, I mean, I see him and I'm like, dude, that's impressive.
Awesome. Well,
that is impressive.
It's comical you say that. So I just got, I know in other podcasts we've talked about, I had a wire hair that I've been training, and the owner was like, hey, could I get some more videos? Because I was sending him videos of his progress. And so I was like, yeah. So me and Zeke, the dog, we went very, very challenging over force fetch. He didn't like it at all. Well, his holding was phenomenal. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take some videos of him holding and tell him to fetch. He fetches and he holds, and then all of a sudden in the video he just bleh, and I'm like, you turd. I mean, you never do that, and you're going to do that with this. So
as soon as you turn the camera on.
Exactly. So I sent it to him, and then I sent him a video right afterwards. But it is so incredible and it's humbling. And the reason I say this is our dogs can do so much right. Mm-hmm. And then when the pressure's on us, they fail. And, it's not even that they fail. We have failed them because they are feeding off of us.
100%.
And that's, I'd say, the first hunt of the year when we went to the pond and hunted. Jasper was feeding off of me, just frustration. And that's where we have to control us. And that's hard I'd say, for both of us at times.
Oh, absolutely.
And, that's how awesome of a learning curve that is for us and what we personally have to work on in our own life. Yep. It goes back to our fellowship that we have together and checking up on each other. And it's waterfowl, dog training, all of this. There's so much more than just what we're talking about here.
Right.
It's the fellowship in our Lord's creation.
I agree.
It's just such a blessing.
Yeah, I think you have. I think you could go on and on and on about wins. I
look
at things, and you had a phenomenal first season with a young dog, especially, and then everything that you've got in the works, you're winning. Yeah,
the Lord has truly blessed me this year.
Absolutely.
So,
and for me, if I had to apply that same thing, we did not have the birds this year that I'm used to having.
No.
And so every hunt was I don't know.
We're gonna
go see.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the wins from the season would be overall, I was super pleased with some of the tougher retrieves that Hondo was able to do.
Oh, man, that one pops into my mind just right off the rip was that teal.
Yeah, that's a hard retrieve.
I mean, very hard to retrieve. In the sun, not moving, just, deader than dead. And you casted him, and then you casted him when he got across the river. You casted him over right on the bank, and then he jumped on the bank, and he's all over the place.
Hunting.
He was hunting, which is what you want.
I want him to do that. Absolutely.
You don't, and everybody's got their own preference on that. Some
Right.
people want more handle, some people don't. They want their dog to actually put their nose to the ground and
My
go.
philosophy is I don't have the nose.
Yeah,
The dog has the nose. I need enough handle to get him close.
Yep,
And then let the nose take over.
exactly. I mean, and he. All of a sudden, that wind picked up, and it was just, then bam, there it was. I mean, that was a huge win.
There was a goose on a later hunt, and I think you were on that. I can't remember. Yeah, it was you and Greg and I were on that hunt, and there was a goose that went down that Hondo did not see.
Yep.
He had no idea where it was, but it was over on the other side of the river. And I asked you, I'm like, you want to try Jasper? And you're like, he's not there yet.
Yep.
I said, okay. And so I got Hondo downriver and used the wind. The wind's coming to off my left shoulder. I positioned Hondo so that when he hit the opposite bank, he would be downwind to that goose.
Yeah.
And, man, he didn't hesitate.
No.
He swam the river. I think I said back once. And he was like, okay. And he just burned to the other bank. He hit the bank, and you could tell. I don't know if he could smell the goose right away, but he came up the bank. And then, and he was gone. And here he comes with a goose.
Yeah.
And he did that multiple times. These are blind retrieves.
Yep.
He's got to go find that bird in very, very heavy cover.
Yeah.
And he never once failed.
Yeah.
I never lost a bird this year.
Yeah.
And hunting the situations in the rivers that we hunt, you are going to lose birds here and there. It's just part of the game. But I never lost a bird.
Yeah.
This year, and that was in large part due to all the training and all the stuff. So that's a huge, huge win for me with Hondo. If I have to think, highlights, there were a lot. Probably the biggest highlight of the year for me is I think one of the most difficult things for a Labrador Retriever to do is to track a bird over distance. Ground track, like a beagle on a rabbit.
Yep.
That's a difficult thing for a Labrador to do. Some do it really well, some don't. Yep. I honestly think that the more a dog hunts upland birds, the better they get at it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have to follow scent through cover to get a flush, especially pheasants.
Yeah.
And I hunted Hondo on pheasants more this year than I ever have.
Yeah.
And he was spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, he found birds, he flushed birds, he tracked birds and pinned them and flushed them, and he did exceptionally well. But there's one retrieve that comes to mind. It was on a chucker. And he and I were out with family, again, just kind of a Sunday afternoon thing, not getting real serious, covering ground, using the binoculars to look for birds, and found a pretty good-sized covey. Let Hondo out. We got in pretty tight. They flushed pretty wild, and I shot once and knocked a bird down.
Yep.
I was like, okay, they're too far. I'm not going to shoot again. Bird came down alive. And if you know anything about chuckers and in the country, the terrain that they inhabit, it's extremely demanding country.
Oh, yeah.
And this bird hit the ground. Hondo marked it down and ran over there. And as he's getting to the spot, I see the bird running up the hillside. And this is vertical stuff. This is cliffs and stuff.
Yep.
It wasn't unsafe. One thing he was going to fall off of. But I knew I thought he's going to need some help. And by the time I got over to him, he was on that bird's scent. And the bird had ran up through the boulders and up over the top of this plateau. And I knew off the backside of the plateau that there was a 2-track way down in the bottom, and that plateau was kind of rolled, and it went a long, long ways, but that plateau top was open. And I finally get up there, I'm grinding my fat butt up to the top of this thing, and I get up there, and I'm panting and breathing heavy, and Hondo is nowhere in sight. I mean, and I can see for 300 yards, and he's gone. I was like, okay. But when I last saw him, he was in the exact line of travel that bird was taking, and his nose was on the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe not on the ground, but Hondo will air scent a little bit, kind of get his nose stretched out, and he'll work. And I'm like, he's on that bird. He can smell it. Got over the top, and I'm walking across this plateau at a pretty fast clip in the general direction I think things went. No snow to track in. And I get where I can see off the backside. And again, it's not cliffy, it's rolling stuff. And way down in the bottom comes Hondo down that 2-track with that chucker in his mouth.
Yep.
He tracked that bird from where it hit the ground up over the top of this big, huge plateau. And I'm talking, we're probably at half a mile. And he's so fast.
Oh, yeah.
For a Labrador, I've seen very few Labs that are as fast as he is. And he was out of sight in minutes.
Yeah.
And then here he comes with a bird. No drop, perfect hold.
Yeah. And
I dropped off, and he could see me, but the whole hillside was covered in prickly pear. And he's like, I'm not coming up there, So I went down to the road, and he brings me the bird, and I took it and dispatched it because it was still alive.
Yeah.
And then I tossed it to him, and we went back to the truck, and he carried it all the way back, That was a huge win for me.
Oh, man.
Because I'm like, when is this dog going to figure out tracking,
Use your
how
nose.
to track something?
Yeah.
Well, that's a really hard thing to train because, you can drag a dead bird around on a string, but the dog's tracking you as much as it's tracking the bird.
Yeah, exactly.
And some dogs are better at it than others. Mackinac in particular was always good at following scent.
Yeah.
He was always good at it. Part of it was I hunted him on pheasants a lot. But Hondo, I'm like, I think he'll get there. Maybe not. It's okay. Not that big a deal. But, man, it's nice when, a goose hits the field and runs into the brush, or a duck falls far and then it's crippled and it's making way. And he did it.
Yeah.
That was a huge win for me.
That's awesome.
Huge win. And I couldn't be any happier with that because that's going to translate into more success as we continue as well.
Exactly.
And it's a hard thing to train.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to train. It's almost like the dog just has to get that experience of hunting in the field to be able to do that.
Well, it's no different right now with the little dog work that both of us are doing.
Right.
White bumpers in snow. They can't see them. And talk about, like, from my place at my house where I work the dogs, it's 2.5 foot.
Yep.
And so you throw a bumper, that bumper's going
It's under the snow.
Under the snow.
Yep.
And they're working and running and trying to figure it out. They get their nose down, and then it's like, now we're doing something.
And it translates to these late season hunts where we have a
Exactly.
foot of snow on the ground. You drop a duck, and the dog's not going to be able to see it.
No.
It's going to be in the powder.
Yeah.
I've watched dogs. I watched Mackinac. He was very, very good at this. Mackinac could mark better than just about any dog I've ever seen. Just raw talent. If he saw a bird fall, he could run exactly to where it was.
Yeah.
And very seldom would he overrun a bird either. It was just he was very, very good at that. And I hunted. It seems like when Mackinac was in his prime, where Hondo is now, we got winters like this more often, where it'd be too cold to hunt waterfowl on the river, and I didn't have field sets around me. It was strictly river hunting.
Yeah.
Whereas okay, it's pushing ice, slush, I'm not hunting. So we'd hunt chuckers, we'd hunt Huns. And, it's 20 below, but the dog's running around doing their thing, and it's okay. I remember this one cubby flush. It was Huns. And they flushed, and they kind of went like this, and I dumped one, folded it, and I shot again and folded another bird, but it went down hard, and it hit into a hillside with snow, and it just disappeared. I could see the hole in the snow where the bird had hit.
Yeah.
But it was gone, buried in 2 feet of snow. And Mac, of course, marked the first bird, brings it back to me. And I walk him over there, and I'm like, I'm just going to get him right to where I saw the bird go down and let him hunt.
Yeah.
And he's hunting and hunting and hunting, and all of a sudden, boom, buries himself in the snow, comes out with a bird.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy smokes. So I do think training with bumpers in the snow, making a dog really work and really hunt, it just builds all that game time skill set that you need so much.
Exactly.
You practice how you play.
Oh, exactly. And, that's with any, if you're doing upland or waterfowl, or even even goose fields. I mean, that hunt, if they don't do it, I'll recap on our last goose hunt last year and how Dara nor Hondo had been in the field all year. And the first bird, Dara breaks, and, it's you got to set them up for success.
Yep.
And if I would have worked her before we went out in a layout, within the kennel layout for a dog, it would have been better.
Yep.
But, and that's something to recap of always have your dog prepared. I showed you pictures of Jasper that I worked him last week. And this week I've already worked him in it, but had him in a layout. And just trying to get prepared if we do a one more hunt of the year.
Hopefully we're supposed to get up into the teens on Friday. Maybe those birds will fly, maybe they won't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
And it's at this time of the season for me that in my younger days, in my 20s, when I was just killing geese like it was my job, I'd be so frustrated right now.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Where I'm like, yeah, I got to get out. And I've got to the point where I've just kind of mellowed over time where it's like, if we get an opportunity, great.
Exactly. And that's the best thing about, I think, for where both of us are at in our lives with our dogs. Now, yeah, we want to have more retrieves.
Absolutely.
But it's not going to end our day if we don't get another hunt this year.
Yep.
And I'm glad I'm at that place in my life because I was in the same boat. Got to kill him. And now I'm just like, if we get another chance, that'd be great.
And there's times, in the peak of when we have birds, we have ducks, and conditions are good, like I'm hunting as much as I possibly can.
Exactly.
Probably didn't hunt enough this year. You look back and take stock this time of year over your season, and I know going into the 24-25 season, I looked back at the 23-24 season, and I was like, I didn't hunt with my kids enough.
Yeah.
I was too worried about content, and I didn't hunt with my kids enough.
Yeah.
And so this year, I still didn't hunt with my kids enough, but I hunted with them. I was more purposeful about this
intentional
hunt, you're
with
going
them.
on this one.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It was, I feel like overall, the season was a massive success.
Oh, 100%.
I like I said, I didn't hunt as much as I wanted to. Sometimes that's just life.
Yeah.
And I think most people listening to this could probably feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
But I think slowing down this time of year and taking the time to go, what went right and where do I need to improve?
Yeah.
And taking time to celebrate those wins.
Oh, exactly.
And be like, man, that was – because that's what this is about. That's what – owning dogs and dogs that you're working toward a goal with, if you just gloss over everything and just constantly focus on what they're not doing right, you're never going to get the most out of that dog.
No, and you're robbing yourself of the joy.
It's exactly right.
And that's the biggest thing is the joy out of these dogs. Right now, Dara is due any day.
Yep.
And she didn't hunt at all this year. And that was – I could look at that as a negative just because I love hunting with her. But – her purpose this year for this season was to have another litter.
Yep.
And this will be her last litter. But, for this upcoming seasons, oh, man, she's going to be rocking and rolling, ready to go. And that is exciting because she's my stinking daughter, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
She's my baby girl. And so, I could take from this past season that Jasper was my highlight for the dog this year. But in my back of my mind, I'm like, man, I wish she was here with me.
Yep, but it's coming.
It is.
It's one of those deals where, like you said, it's Dara's last litter. And, guys, I'm going to do a shameless plug for Josh right here because he probably won't self-promote. If you're looking for a purebred British Labrador of top stock that's going to be awesome around your family and in your house, but going to give you ultimate performance in the field, you need to call Josh at Red Flats Retrievers. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you can find him there, Red Flats Retrievers, and you've got a litter coming up. They'll be ready in 8 weeks.
Yep.
Call him, get your deposit down, get yourself an awesome dog if you're looking for that. So there's your shameless plug.
Thank you, Todd.
Yep. No, because I know you're a humble guy and you won't do it yourself, so I'll do it for you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to next year. There's some just stuff that I'm like, okay, we need to do more of that as we touched on. But I feel like you and I are both in a really good place with things, and we have a plan moving forward. And I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah.
I will be looking for another dog, maybe 2. We'll see. Life is crazy, and I don't even know how I'd handle another puppy at this point. But having 2 dogs, having Hondo and Mackinac at the same time, and a little bit of hunting for a couple of years that I got to do with both of them, it's like, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. And, looking for a dog, and me and Todd have talked about this in previous podcasts, but, there's a time that is right.
Right.
And it's never just every time is right. I have on this litter that we'll be having in the next couple of days, I already have 4 deposits.
Good.
And so out of 7, that's what we think we have from x-rays and ultrasounds is we think we have 7. But, time is very important of when you get your next dog. Yep. Life is crazy enough on its own. You add a puppy into the mix, and then it's like, okay, well, is this the right time or not?
Yep.
Which me and you have talked about when you're getting a new dog or another pup. And, it's for both of us, we both need a rotation of dogs.
I have to have a rotation.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So it's important, especially if one of them, I'll say for Hondo this year, he was getting a little ouchy on his feet because he's such a hard-charging dog.
Yep.
And so say you've hunted him 3 days in a row, he can't hunt the 4th day.
Yep.
That's when you take the other dog.
Yeah, and splitting retrieves.
Exactly.
Having 2 dogs. There's situations where you could hunt a dog every single day. I think like goose fields, especially dryland hunts. Yeah, there's corn stubble and there's things, but if you're taking care of your dog the right way, you should be able to hunt a dog on those hunts. Those are pretty low impact.
Correct.
Pretty easy for a dog to hunt multiple days on those.
Yes.
The rivers out here take a massive toll on dogs.
Yes.
And I know for a fact they shorten our dogs' lives.
Yeah.
They 100% do.
Yep.
And Hondo, being a hard charger, I have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, man, can we just take a couple of yours? Because he's limping around and he's foot sore. Mm-hmm. Those river rocks are so uneven and he goes so hard that, you can imagine trying to run barefoot on those. And a dog's designed differently than a person, obviously. Yeah. But he goes so hard that I know it affects his elbows. Because you watch him when he gets up after a hunt, even at 4 years old now, he's ginger for the first few steps. And his one foot, he always is favoring because he's always twisting that. It's a recurring injury. Yeah, we strengthen it. We do road work. We do all those things to make him to be in the best physical condition he can be.
Yep.
But I don't work him in the river a ton.
During the off season
Because I want that. It's like all I'm going to do is make that injury worse over time and just build and build and build on it. So having an extra dog where you can alternate retrieves, alternate hunts, it's pretty big. And I play devil's advocate with what you said about knowing when the time is right. And it's going to be different for every person.
Exactly.
Some people, I look at my brother's example. They just got a little dog. She's a little mop dog. She's a house dog, just a pet for the kids and for his wife. My brother wants to have another Labrador. He does not have the time in his schedule. Now, he could have the dog trained. He could do all these things, but he said, I can't even hunt enough throughout the season because my career is so busy that I don't feel like it's fair to do that. Good for him to be able to make that judgment call. And my brother, admittedly, his passion in life is whitetail hunting.
Yeah.
And so if he's going to make the time to do something, it's going to be for hunting whitetails.
Exactly.
And he knows that. So he's kind of like, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I will say this. There's also never a good time.
No, there is never.
There's never enough time.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
You're going to run out of money and you're going to run out of health way before you run out of – or I'm sorry, I said that backwards. You're going to run out of time way before you run out of health and money. And you're going to hit a point in your life where you've got all the time in the world, but you don't have the health to do what you want to do.
Yep. Exactly.
And so it's like do stuff now.
Yeah.
And if getting a puppy is going to cramp things and make things a little more challenging, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to get and what your family's going to get in return for that investment of your time and your feelings is worth way more. You're going to get more out of that. Now, be honest with yourself. At the same time, you're like, I literally can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a period in life before I got Mackinac for probably 6 years, 5 years, at least 5 years, where I couldn't.
Exactly.
I couldn't. My schedule was teaching and coaching, and I was coaching in the wintertime, and any dog would have been living in a crate.
Yeah.
That's not fair to the dog.
Yep.
I was single, so I didn't have support to, leave the dog with somebody, all these different things. And now I look back at that, and it was the right decision for me to wait.
Well, and I think we go through that time. I mean, I'll never forget my first lab after he passed. I didn't have a dog for 6-7 years.
Right.
And I mean, I was running all over Kingdom Come. It wouldn't have worked.
Yep,
I wasn't working at the ranches back home. And so I was like, I'm just going to hold off.
Right.
And then I moved out here, and I was like, I got to get a dog again.
And I did the same thing when I got Mackinac. It was kind of like, okay, life's a little more stable now. I'm in a better place. I have some time.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Could I have made excuses like, no, I can't do it?
We all can make an excuse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you take a seriously candid look at your schedule and you go, I think we can do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Exactly.
It's going to add so much enjoyment to your life and to your hunting. Just do it.
Yeah.
Take the plunge. And then when you take that plunge, be intentional about it and carve out the time in your schedule to do what needs to be done.
Exactly.
Because that is going to make your dog more enjoyable and make your time in the field more enjoyable.
Exactly.
But yeah, don't take the excuse of, I don't have the time, or I don't know. If that's truly the case, okay.
Yeah.
But if you're making excuses, get the dog.
Yeah.
And then make it a priority.
Yes.
In your life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I mean, we could sit here and jabber all day about a million different things, but I wanted to talk about highlights. I want to talk about wins. I wanted to talk about plans for what you and I are going to be focusing on.
Yeah.
We both have dogs. Hondo's at the point where he's close to what you could probably call a finished dog, but I don't think any dog's ever truly finished.
No, they're not.
And so it's kind of like there's definitely things there that we're going to work on, we're going to improve. And probably looking at a puppy. There's an empty spot in our house right now.
Yeah.
And man, I still get emotional about it. But it's kind of like Hondo's great and Hondo's enough. He's more than enough. But I want another one.
Oh, yeah.
I want another one.
I
want my kids to have another one.
Exactly.
And they're already chomping at the bit to see your next litter. And
well, just you're lucky for this litter. They're all going to hopefully be red, so you're not really worried about that.
Nope. All dogs want to be labs, and all labs want to be black. Anyway. Yeah, we could go on and on, man. But it's that time of the season where stuff's winding down. We've had just a ton of fun. Yeah. There's never enough, obviously, but I cherish what we have, and I cherish the time I get to spend with you. And I'm looking forward to creating, more of a solid game plan. And one of the things that I want to talk about in the next time we get together is how do you pick a puppy?
Yeah.
So be ready for that podcast. I'm not going to promise you it'll be the next podcast, but it's coming up. I want to talk about how do you pick a puppy? Mm-hmm. What do you look at? If not from a breeder's perspective, I want some of that. Yeah. But from an outside perspective, where somebody puts a deposit down, how do you help them select the right dog? Because I think there's a lot of confusion around that, and a lot of people don't know. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to necessarily match a dog to their lifestyle, match a dog to their personality, because it's really, really, really important to match a dog to not only what you want, but your lifestyle and what you can do with that dog. Hondo is right on the cusp of being more dog than I can handle. Mm-hmm. He's right there. And if I had to do it over, I'd still pick him because I really enjoyed him. Yeah. But Mackinac was easy.
Well, knowing what you know now. And that is where all of us that has ever gone and picked a dog or a breeder has said this is the dog you want.
Right.
That's where every dog's going to be different.
Yep.
It may be from a very similar line,
Right.
but it's just different, each
Yep.
and every dog. And so the more dogs you have, the easier then it gets.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and so I want to get into that because I think that's an important topic to discuss about how you pick a dog or how you decide which dog, and honestly, deferring to the professional, the person who's breeding those dogs, but we will get into that.
We'll get to that another
we
date.
Get to that. Got to leave ourselves some content. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Wingmen Podcast. Josh, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's always fun. And make sure you check us out on all of our social media feeds and everything we've got going on. And guys, check out all of our great partners as well. We couldn't do what we do without them. I've been a Federal fanboy forever. I love their ammo. I'm ecstatic to be partnered with them. The new Weatherby Sorex shotguns, they've got another gun out now it's the second gen of their Element line. Mm-hmm. That is a really great price point, really a lot of quality for that gun. And, of course, the Cryptek camouflage, it keeps us hidden, it keeps us warm, it keeps us in the field until we're ready to come home. And then, Onyx, if you don't know about Onyx, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but it's a great tool that we use constantly.
Game changer.
It is a game changer for more than just waterfowl hunting. For you guys that are generalist hunters like what we are, I can't imagine doing big game hunts without Onyx.
No.
Phenomenal stuff there. And then the guys at High Mountain Seasonings, I know I have a little bit of a stockpile of meat right now that is going to get turned into some great High Mountain product seasonings as well. Some snack sticks and jerky and summer. I've got planned bratwurst. Just finished up the last of the goose bratwurst I made the other day. Super stoked
you
for
old
it.
Pollock.
That's right. That's right. Got to have that bratwurst. Anyway, guys, thank you to all of our fine sponsors as well. Make sure you're checking them out. It's coming up on that time of year where you might need a new pair of performance eyewear. Go check out the Leopold Performance Eyewear as well. And thank you again for checking out everything that we do here. Make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Wingmen Podcast YouTube channel, but also the Wingmen Hunts channel as well. We've got all our gear reviews and hunts on there. We just released, excuse me, we got a couple new hunts out. The snow goose hunt from last year turned out awesome, and I love the way that video turned out, and I think you guys are going to like it. So check out all that great stuff. Until next time, we'll see you in the field.